Hey y'all,
Welcome back to the cabin. And today,
we're getting prepared.
as a point of reference, the day that we're filming this is actually the day that Laura is hitting the Louisiana coast. And as both of us actually grew up in hurricane country, our hearts go out to all of those that are being impacted by that right now. We've gotten some breeze and some showers off of it, but that's all that we've gotten, and we're grateful for that. But we do want to remember those that are going through that. But it also brings to mind that we need to be prepared for the unknown, because that storm hit the Gulf and intensified very, very quickly. So if you weren't prepared, you could be caught off guard. But that's not the only thing that can happen. We don't know what the future holds. So we're going to talk about some things to help you be prepared and ease your mind in the case of uncertain times. So one of the most important things, Jerry, is probably we need to make sure that we have plenty of food on hand, right?
And water.
And water. So actually right now, the last few videos that I've done have been on canning and showing you how to can things and to ease your mind about pressure canning, because you can't water bath some of the most important foods that you need to have on your pantry shelf. But if you don't can, there's other ways, right?
Well, yeah, but getting back to the canning part, I mean, we have a freezer with food in it. But if you go through something, which we've done a lot of times before, where we went through, when we lived on the coast, went through a hurricane and
Katrina.
Maybe 2 weeks without electricity, and a freezer don't do too good in a case like that. So you have to have other ways.
Right, exactly. And I talk about diversifying your pantry, your food storage. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, because if one is destroyed or you lose one, you've still got the other as a backup. And growing up in hurricane country, we refer to that again. We often joke about being off-grid. We've been off-grid, not by choice, but because we had no choice. And one of the things that you have to be prepared for is the fact that your freezers will not run without electricity, and a generator will help you. But in the case of Katrina, you couldn't get gas for the generator. When you run out of gas, there was nowhere within several hundreds of miles to get it.
Hey, Boo.
Come here, Boo.
If you can prepare and keep a little bit of gas and have it on hand for that, but now gas is only good for so long, and it'll go bad.
Right.
But if you have gas and you have a freezer, especially if the freezer is full of food, it's not as hard to keep cold. You can crank up the freezer probably for an hour or two, twice a day, and keep everything fine for a little while.
But that is when you look at that, the amount of food in the freezer, it's so vulnerable.
It is.
And if something happens, and even if you've got gas and your generator conks out, you can't get it to crank. So the whole point of all of that is to say that canning is a backup or an alternative to having a freezer. Now, if you follow our channel, you know that we raise hogs, a couple or about 4 a year that we put in the freezer, and also we just bought a side of beef that's in another freezer. So what I'm doing now is making sure that I'm taking a certain amount of that and putting it into jars and pressure canning it to have it safe on the pantry, on the shelf, for times, unknown times, unexpected times, for emergencies. Another thing too is
if you cook with gas, that helps.
It does, absolutely. Now, cooking with natural gas or propane, which we have propane, when the electricity goes down, you don't have a stove. So if you have an electric stove, you are without a way to cook. Now, we have a gas stove. I love a gas stove. But I also have another alternative way that I cook. Now, we know that we have grills and we have outdoor cookers that use a 5-gallon propane bottle. But I have another alternative that is completely free and harnesses the energy of the sun, and I use it quite frequently in the summertime. And that is the All-American Sun Oven. And I love this oven. It's absolutely free to use on a sunny day and does a marvelous job. we like it because it doesn't heat the house up. And going back to being off-grid, you're not going to have air conditioning. So even with the gas stove, the last thing I want to do is to crank up the oven. Turn on the oven. So in the summer. So that's a great alternative. Now I will be doing a video pretty soon kind of showcasing the sun oven and how it works and the delicious food that comes out of it. We do it by choice, not because we have to. If we have to, it's an easy thing for us to do, but we actually use the sun oven by choice because it's such a great product to have and produces great food. So
well, I like it because if not only does it not heat up the house like the oven in the kitchen does, but also if we're working outside, then all you got to do is put your food in it, and just ever so often you go by and turn it to keep it in line with the sun, and you don't have to stop what you're doing outside and go in the house to
I don't have to stop and go prepare a meal. It's like the slow cooker for outside. Actually, it is a slow cooker. That's the principle that it works on, and it's just a wonderful thing. But we'll showcase that in another video and kind of show you the ins and outs and how it works and the wonderful food that comes out of it. But I will leave a link in the description box below if you want to go and check it out, and also if you decide to purchase, there should be a 10% off coupon in the link below as well. So, but you can go to sunoven.com, and it's a great website, and it'll explain all the perks and the good things about the sun oven.
You're making me hungry talking about that.
No, we've got something else going on right now in the house that smells pretty good. But one thing that we wanted to stress, kind of an overview, is that be sure to have plenty of food, non-perishable, which would be in cans or jars that's been canned, on your pantry shelf. And also,
well, some people might not be prepared to or be able to can.
Right. So what would they need to do? What would be a good alternative?
I would suggest that when you go to the store, you pick up a few extra cans of
Right.
rice, beans,
dried beans and rice.
Anything that'll. I mean, we're not talking about gourmet cooking now. We're talking about surviving in a chance when food's not that easy to get.
Rice and beans and beans and rice.
Sounds like somebody I heard.
Somebody we've heard that a lot, haven't we? But another thing is, well, make sure also if you do buy rice and beans that you have a way to store them where they're safe from insects, rodents, and things like that. So you want some good airtight buckets with some rubber seals, or vacuum packing. If you have a vacuum sealer, those are great for putting them in, or just even jars that have rubber gaskets on that. So yeah, and another thing, let's talk about canning some more just a second. Let's talk about canning. Okay, so a great skill to have is to learn how to can. There's several different types. There's water bath canning, there's pressure canning. They're very specific for what they're used for, and I'll link to a video here that's going to kind of explain that. If you're new to the canning community and the explosion of canning going on right now, there's just so much of it going on, which leads to the fact that we can't find jars, we can't find lids, the reusable lids. And I've actually just began using reusable lids. That's another video on the horizon that I will be bringing you along and showing you how to use those, because they are an alternative to the disposable lids that most of us canners are so familiar with. But supplies are hard to get now. Canning jars, the disposable lids, even the Tatler lids, or the Harvest Guard lids, which is what I use, and I'll leave a link to those below as well, so you can go and check those out. But you need to be prepared now, because if they're hard to find now, they're going to be non-existent in an emergency
You never know
situation.
what's going to happen. Just like when the coronavirus come up, you know, you couldn't find things on the shelves, and there's things. It's hard to get now. Freezers is almost impossible to find a freezer.
And if you do find them, they're expensive.
Like you said, the canning jars. All that. The canners are hard to find.
The canners, you can't find pressure canners. You can't find, and if you find a used pressure canner, they cost more than the new ones originally did. You know, so it's supply and demand is what's driving that right now. But also, what else? Maybe water.
Gotta have water.
You can live a little longer without food than you can water.
we don't have a well. So we have to figure out some way to do something.
We had a well at our previous residence for years, 20 years maybe, had a very deep, very good water well. It's one of the things that when we chose to move a little more north, that was probably the hardest thing to give up, was our well and the great water. And we just haven't gotten to that point here because they had community water that we haven't put a well down. But now we're realizing how vulnerable we are to not have a source of water.
Well, you can get by with a lot less water than what you normally use. I mean, you can give up on some things temporarily to conserve water.
We did in hurricane, during hurricane season we did.
Here we have a tote that we keep fresh water in. It's like 250 to 270 gallons. And that's fine. That would last us a long time. But we have animals.
We do.
You know.
We do. We have livestock, and you have to, and that's another point. We'll talk about that some more. You have to prepare not only for yourself, but your livestock, and especially the livestock that gives back the most, which would be our chickens and our milk cow Lily. So we have to be prepared in case something happens, the unknown. We have to think ahead. Now's the time you can think clearly. In the situation, when you're in the middle of the situation, you can't think clearly. Panic will try to set in, and you won't be able to think and make good decisions. So now is the time to prepare. Now is the time to learn the skills, to learn the canning skills, the soap making skills, the time to start stocking up on things such as food, to think about where your water's coming from and your animals. Now, of course, this is hay season, so now is the perfect time, which we're fixing to do. We're going to be filling the loft with hay because we do that anyway, because when the winter comes on and there's no grass. But if I can't get grain, Lily can survive perfectly fine on good quality hay.
And still produce. And
still produce. Now her production may go down some, but she's going to produce very well on good quality hay, and now's the time to get it. The hay is good quality. There's not a high demand for it. There's a good hay in season, and it's reasonably priced. So we'll be filling the loft with hay, which we would do anyway. But in the case of not being able to get grain, we're still going to be fine. But water for the animals and us is a big...
Yeah, the thing about the water, like I said, if we've got 250 gallons, me and you can go a long way.
A long time.
But the animals would put a hurting on the water real quick. They go through that. So we have to figure out a way to make sure that they've got water without hitting ours too hard.
Exactly, and Lily, that's one thing. The more output that she gives us in milk, the more water she drinks. Right. So she's probably one of the biggest consumers of water as far as out in the pasture.
Not only do we not have a well, we don't have a gutter system.
No. But, these are all things that, see, we're not done with the homestead.
just last night, we moved a large galvanized tub or a large trough out to the edge of the barn. That way, when it does rain, we catch the rainwater.
And I forget where I saw that, but that was a great idea. I saw it on a YouTube video that I was watching where someone had taken their water troughs, which we may do that here, because we have a lot of runoff here until we get gutter systems, because I can always use water troughs.
That's where we get our water for your soap. Right here where we're sitting.
Right. We set up buckets.
5-gallon buckets.
We
right
sure
here.
do.
You know?
We set up buckets with straining rags over them to catch them, and that's my soap. Because when you make soap, you have to use distilled water or purified water. You can't use tap water because of the chlorine in it. So it's free. It's running off, so we catch it, and we've got it in rain barrels in the shop where it's protected. But I saw where they took the galvanized oval water troughs and put them at the edge of the roof, and it was catching runoff from the roof as well, because we don't have a gutter system. And a gutter system would be perfect, but it's an expense, and it's on the list. But we're still building the homestead. There's a lot of things that are going to be done over time, but I think our first priority is probably we're going to concentrate on a well.
Pretty soon. I'm interested in two wells.
Two wells. Yeah.
I'd love to have a good deep 150 to 250 foot well for some good water. But I would also like to have a 20-foot deep well, one that we could take a hand pump and pump water out when we don't have electricity to pump out with an electric pump.
Right. And the thing about the shallow well, it may not be quite as purified, and that brings me to a filtration system, and I don't have this yet, but it's on pretty high on my list of things to get, and that's the Berkey filter. Out of all the water filtration systems out there, that's the best, is the Berkey filter. And I'll leave a link to them below so you can go check them out. But, so we've covered water.
We've covered food. What else?
Right. Well, let's see, we do have, okay.
Some of the skills
skills. Well, we talked about canning.
Yep.
So one of the skills that you can learn besides the canning is soap making. And if you start out with a simple recipe with simple instructions to kind of gain your confidence, and you can use that soap now, well, after it cures for 4 weeks, but you can go ahead and be learning how to do it now, so that when you're not caught off guard when something happens, you're already prepared to take care of your family. You're already learning all of those skills that you can use well, let's talk about the soap making, the canning, dehydrating. That's another one. We'll talk about that in another video coming up. But you can put food up by dehydrating. You can put meat up by dehydrating in the form of jerky and things like that. Those are all things. But if we find ourselves in a totally down-grid situation, we still have dirty clothes. We still have dirty bodies. We still have dirty dishes. We still have things that are going to need cleaning. Now the priorities will shift. Some things that aren't as important to be as clean as other things, but you still have to have some type of soap. You can take a basic lard soap recipe and you can use it to wash your body. You can grate it and dry it and mix it with some things, and I'm sure there's a video coming up on that too. And make a great washing soap, laundry soap with that. A great fabric softener is vinegar. And also, you need to learn to ferment. That's another great skill, and now is the time to learn all these. And the reason I said ferment, you can ferment foods. That's another preservation way to put foods up, such as sauerkraut. But you can also ferment and make vinegars. And those vinegars can be used in place of, except in canning, because of the acidity being not consistent. But those vinegars can be used for so many things. You can use them as fabric softeners, hair rinse, as cleaners around your house, natural disinfectants to clean your house with. Those are all things, and there's tons of great videos out there that you can go and find more information out about them.
What is that stuff in that spray bottle under the sink?
That
we use.
That's actually orange peel vinegar, where I'd taken orange peels and made vinegar. I've got a lime vinegar from limes that I had in the refrigerator that I forgot about, and they got kind of dehydrated. So I'm not going to throw them out. I'm going to find a use for them, so I cut them up and let them ferment and turn into a vinegar. And now use that for cleaning. It's a great disinfectant. It makes your house smell wonderful, and it's natural. There's vinegars that you can make sort of you can make it with cedar, with pine, so you get that pine smell. There's all kinds of natural cleaning. But now is the time to practice that. Bread making. Now is the time to practice that. But if you're going to make bread, it's not going to do any good if you don't have flour. Mm-hmm. So you need to be stocking up on, now, you can't stock up on a lot of flour, but you can stock up on wheat berries. But then you have to have a grain mill. So you see the steps. You've got to start doing this now, because once something happens, you can't get those things. So now is the time.
And you're not preparing forever. I mean, of course, you hear all kinds of stories, and I'm not even thinking about that. But just like I said, the couple of weeks when the storm comes through, if you can prepare up for a couple of weeks, worth of stuff to get you through. To get you through,
right? And if you've got 3 months worth of food, and just a stockpile and preparations, 3 months of time will allow you to clear your head and make decisions, good decisions, and plan ahead even more. But if you find yourself with nothing, or you find yourself with just a couple of days worth, then panic can set in, and then like I said, you know, people don't make good decisions when they
If
get in
you
a
sit
panic
through a
mode.
disaster and when it's over with, then you think, well, I need to run to the store. That don't happen.
Well, we went through Katrina. We lived on the Mississippi Gulf Coast when Katrina hit, and of course I went through Camille, but I was a little girl, and before Katrina, Camille was the storm. That was the storm that everybody referred to as the worst storm that had ever hit the United States. Everybody knew about Camille. Well, now it's Katrina, and we went through Katrina, and we left. We left and went to Georgia. Jerry has family in Georgia, and we went to Georgia, and we came back, and we didn't have, of course, we had supplies, and you notice that, you know, to put up something in hurricane country before hurricane season gets here. But that one was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough because we started running out of stuff, and you couldn't go to the store and you couldn't drive to the gas station and get gasoline. Even if there was gas in their tanks, there was no power to pump their pumps. We drove to Florida to get gas, and it was rationed. Even in Florida then, you could only buy so much.
Luckily, you could only buy 10 gallons of gas or 10 gallons of diesel fuel.
We drove the diesel truck.
We drove the diesel truck and bought the 10 gallons was enough to get us over there, but we bought 10 gallons of gas too and brought that home to run our generator.
Right, so I mean, and that run the generator, which run our pump, which gave us fresh water. So we were able, but when we started running out of gas for the generator, and it was still going to be, the power company was doing the absolute very best they could, and they were doing an absolute marvelous job, but it was just overwhelming, the destruction and devastation. And we lost outbuildings that we don't have a clue where they went. Never found them, never found parts of them or anything. They were just gone. The house survived. It had some pretty significant roof damage and stuff, but we lost some smaller outbuildings that there was no evidence anywhere. We never found them. So, but the point is that whether it's a short-term disaster like a hurricane, tornadoes, even the land hurricane that hit the Midwest here a few weeks ago, that we would never have thought of. But also you do need to be prepared with your fuel for your tractor and your other outside vehicles, I think, right?
Yeah, you need to have some fuel on hand. Again, if you do that, if you
Not
store
long-term
fuel,
storage, yeah.
you rotate it out. You'll have to, because fuel's not going to last very long. Now, you can put something in it. You can put,
Stay-Bill or Lucas or something, some of those brand name things.
A little longer, but it's not going to last very long. But you can rotate it as you use it, then, take it out. And that way you got a little bit on hand to run the generators, run whatever you need to.
Well, like after Katrina, when we was trying to get back, and we lived in a rural area down a dirt road, and we was trying to get back, and there was a huge tree across the road. Well, my husband had to walk up the road. Actually, we didn't have a chainsaw with us. That's another thing you should always, I guess, have when you live down a rural area with trees around and everything in the hurricane country. But he had to walk to the house and bring the tractor back to pull the tree out of the road.
Where we could get home.
Yeah. And the track, and also I think we ended up having to use it to help some other people get trees out of the road so they could get home and different things like that. So you have to be prepared to help your neighbor as well. So you
need a few days worth of supplies at home, because after something like that, you're not going to be going anywhere, because there's not going to be anywhere to go.
No, and communication. The cell phone towers were, if they were still standing, they were not working. So you got communication to think of too. It would probably be a good idea to have a plan in place
with your family,
so that hopefully everybody can be in one area or a designated area safe. And so have that plan ahead of time so there's no question. Now, we talked about preparing for livestock. We're looking at our notes down here. We've got notes. Another thing is in your house, if you're in a grid down situation. Now, when I speak of grid down, my experience, we have experienced grid down situations with hurricanes. Longer term, sometimes a storm would knock out lights for a day or a few hours, but hurricanes can be for weeks at a time. But we also think about, we don't know what the future holds, and we've heard of EMPs And is there a chance that'll happen? I'm sure there's a chance. I don't worry about it or lose sleep over it. But if you find yourself in a longer term situation like that, you just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, how you would be prepared for that. And another thing would be lights, which we went through that with Katrina. We had oil lamps in the house to help us.
And candles.
Candles and stuff. But then you got to be very, very careful with those, especially with children, and not being familiar with the lamps in the house. And there were instances where houses caught on fire, and if they weren't lost in the hurricane, they were lost to fire, which was tragic. So it was, adding insult to injury, already going through so much. So you need to be prepared for lighting. My favorite now, I didn't have them then, but my favorite now is the Aladdin lamps. They put off a wonderful amount of light that is usable light in the house, a higher wattage type light where you can actually read by and stuff. And of course they use the oil lamp, and you want a good quality oil lamp for those. And you need to study on those now and learn how to use an Aladdin lamp now, because it has a mantle, a very fragile mantle in it, and practice using it now before you have to have it. And that goes for anything. That goes with equipment, with canners, with anything that you're not normally familiar with. Learn how to use them now before you have to in a pressure situation, because mistakes are more likely to be made then. But I wanted to just point out about, I don't know if I said this or not, but
You probably did.
I probably did. You can tell who's the chattier of the two here. Talking about not being able to get supplies, and I had purchased Harvest Guard reusable canning lids and gaskets last year, but I only used them this year, and I am so pleased with how they performed. So if you find yourself at this day, the date of this video, not able to find disposable or the throwaway canning lids, the rings, now you do need rings with these, temporary, but just the regular canning lids are fine. I'm very pleased with them, and I will be doing a review video on those and also a how-to on those, because there's a little bit of a learning curve, and it's a little different how
much to tighten the lid.
Absolutely, how to tighten them, and also as soon as they come out of the canner, what you have to do with them. So they are wonderful. I am sold on them. So I'll leave a link to those down below as well, where you can go and explore them. And the man that owns the company has some videos that you can watch on the how-tos and how they perform. So that would be a great place to go check those out, because you can't find the disposable lids. But there's a few other things that we need to talk about being prepared. We talked about the animals. We talked about their water, talked about our water, preparing our pantry. Also, no electricity. I'm going to go to one more thing, and then I'll let you talk. If you don't have electricity and it ends up being long-term, you're going to find that you're going to need clothing. So learning to sew now would be a great thing, but you may need to find, you may find yourself having to use a treadle type machine if you can find it. So learning to sew on a treadle machine is a little bit different. It's very gratifying and very satisfying, but I got videos. They're on the horizon, they're not filmed yet, but to walk you through some of the basics of that if we find ourselves in a long-term grid down situation. So, is that, okay, your turn.
we can...
You want to come in with Mommy?
We can prepare and have all the food and prepare for all the disasters we want to, and cover everything and have gas and water and food and everything. But if we don't prepare for eternal life, all that other's naught.
It's all for naught, isn't it?
It's all for naught, yeah.
Life is eternal. It's where
we may have a hurricane, or we may not. We may have a grid down, we may not. But we're all going to meet that one day. And if we're not prepared for that, everything else is...
And the thing about that is, eternal life is eternal life. And it's where you choose to spend eternal life, but that's the easiest thing to prepare for.
Now's the day to decide.
Now's the day to decide, and it costs
zero. Jesus paid for it.
Exactly. It costs somebody a tremendous amount, but it doesn't cost us anything. It's a free gift.
It is.
Right.
If you're not prepared, prepare.
Prepare today. So that's a good way to kind of sum it all up, isn't it? If you're not prepared, get prepared today. Start preparing today. So if you can't can, go buy some canned goods and put them on your pantry shelf.
Have you something to have some water in.
That's right. Put you some water up.
Some water
if it's just you, if you're alone and on a fixed income, then take care of yourself. Buy a few cans and put up some water. Put up a few things and just be prepared. But if you live on a homestead and you can put up as much as you can, and you may even be able to help your neighbor in a situation.
I know, like in the out around Oklahoma, and there when they have tornadoes, they don't have a bunch of warning. But if you prepare a little bit to start with before anything comes up, like here, or when you live in hurricane country, if they tell you a hurricane's coming and you think, well, I better go get gas, you're going to sit in line for a while trying to get gas, because that's what everybody does.
That's what it does, because everybody's trying to prepare at the same time. So, so it's just good to be prepared, but the most important is your eternal salvation, and be prepared to meet Christ on that day, and it's appointed unto man once to die.
And he paid it all. He paid it. It's already paid.
It's free.
All you have to do is accept it.
Well, I enjoyed this little chit chat, this cabin chat that we had.
How about you, Boo?
And if you like
happy?
these,
huh? Yeah.
Yeah, Boo's been kind of participating.
That's because the car hadn't drove by.
That's
now,
right.
If the car would have drove by,
he would have been interrupting everything, barking and everything. Yeah. So that gives you some things to think about and kind of, get some things on your mind. I know I enjoyed this cabin chat, and if you like this, if you enjoyed today's, be sure to hit the like, hit the thumbs up, and also we love feedback. If you've got some ideas on preparing that you'd like to share with others, or if you have a question, just leave them in the comment section below. But you know that I'm going to leave you. No, I'm going to share with you these beautiful words. Don't ever forget that your Heavenly Father loves you. And we'll see you on the next video. God bless.
That's a wrap.